In the winter of 1883, Clara Beth Morrison, 19, discovered that her father saw her albinism as a disgrace, trading her away like livestock for 3 horses and 2 silver coins to a mountain man named Caleb McKinnon. The icy wind howled around her, sending shivers through her thin, threadbare dress. It carried the sharp scent of pine, mingled with the acrid remnants of last night's fire, a bitter reminder that she was leaving all she had ever known, even if that world had been couched in constant shame. Her hands trembled as she looked to her father, Jacob, whose hardened expression reflected the same disdainful words that echoed in her mind, like a cruel taunt. "You're useless," he had spat, the sneer on his face twisting her heart in a way that felt like a blade driving deeper and deeper with each insult. In this frozen moment, the harsh reality settled around her like a cold blanket, heavy and suffocating. Jacob's grip on reality was waning as the stress of raising a daughter he deemed flawed had severed his last connection to tenderness, a connection that had crumbled under the weight of societal expectations and personal dissatisfaction. He stood before the mountain man, a shadow against the sun-bleached wood of the trading post, patting the horses with a practiced ease that belied the contempt he held for Clara. The crack of leather against flesh, the sting of the horses' reins, as Jacob handed them over, felt like the last remnants of her childhood being stripped away. Clara swallowed, tasting the metallic tang of blood from the bite of her lip. She had to keep her composure, had to keep the tears at bay. Behind her, the whispers of children she once knew rang in her ears, taunting melodies born from the taunts of, "You're too pretty to be worthless." Those fleeting moments of hope flickered away like sparks in the wind. "What's keeping you, girl?" Jacob barked from across the yard, his gruff voice like gravel scraping against her skin. Her body moved forward as if on strings attached to his cruel command. Every step felt like chains clanking at her feet, a reminder of the burden she had always been. With each stride toward the inevitable, she felt the longing of a disconnected child yearning for acceptance, even as delusions of her worth began to disintegrate, dragging her into the depths of despair once more. She could see Caleb's figure growing nearer, shrouded in the salt and pepper shadows of the afternoon. He radiated an aura of ruggedness that made her heart race with anxiety. "Caleb McKinnon," he introduced himself, his voice gravelly yet steady like the earth beneath her feet, reverberating through the stormy silence that hung in the air. Familiarity wrapped around the name like wildfire. The stories of mountain men, told by the fireside on dark winter nights, tales that evoked equal parts fear and awe. Caleb was said to be a hermit figure, living in isolation with life and survival as his only companions. As Clara stood there, trembling and bound by her father's choices, she felt a glimmer of hope mingle with an overwhelming dread, a whisper of something better that begged to be felt. Suddenly, the wind picked up, howling like a banshee chasing uncertainties away. Jacob gestured dismissively at her, his eyes capturing nothing but the satisfaction of finality. "She's all yours," he said casually, as though he were no longer speaking of his daughter, but rather a mere bundle of goods. The conviction with which he surrendered her felt as though it ripped away the final vestiges of Clara's childhood, leaving her devoid of protection against a world that had abandoned her. With little more than a forced nod, Clara began to understand the reality that loomed. The burden of being seen as worthless weighed heavily on her shoulders. She felt herself slip from her father's grasp, a sense of freedom burgeoning despite the panic that gripped her heart. As she stepped away from the only place she had ever called home, she glanced back one last time, searching for something, a glimmer, a shadow, anything, implying she wouldn't have to endure this fate. But all she found was the dust trailing in the wake of her father's indifference. Hopelessness filled her chest, and at that moment the realization struck her. She was stepping into the unknown, a domain filled with uncertainty and peril. Clara's heart raced, thundering against her ribcage as the journey to Caleb's cabin stretched before them. Rugged paths wound through the wilderness, a vast landscape that had both the potential for beauty, yet threatened unending isolation. She was terrified, envisioning all the ways Caleb might exert control over her life. Would he see her as her father had? Would he strip away the last vestiges of her dignity until she was left a shell of a girl? As days turned into an agonizing trail of uncertainty, Clara felt the echoes of her father reverberate around her, a chorus that bitterly reminded her of her supposed sullenness. The threat of disdain lingered like a spectre taunting her through every jolt of the cart. What began as a journey toward survival soon morphed into a battleground of emotions. terror wrestling with a flicker of hope, pitted against years of feeling unworthy. Each bump of the wagon felt like a thud against her self-esteem, yet Clara held on tightly to a single memory. A whisper of kindness from a neighbor, "You're too pretty to be worthless," haunted her like a ghost, clinging stubbornly to her heart. It was a compliment she had buried long ago under the weight of her father's hateful words, but now it flickered back to life, yearning to take root among the ruins of her demolished spirit. Upon their arrival at the towering trees cloaking Caleb's cabin in mist, dread peaked in Clara as she first glimpsed him standing before his home. He was tall and broad, grounded in earthiness, with rugged hands marked by the labors of nature, suggesting a man who had faced many storms. Yet there was something about him, perhaps the lines etched into his face or the way he stood resolutely rooted, that felt oddly comforting. A warmth radiated from him, alongside an air of authority that was unmistakably commanding. Yet as their first words exchanged, Clara felt the fragile tension suffocating the air between them. Her past clung heavily, bleeding into every interaction. "Let's get you inside," Caleb suggested, his tone gentle yet firm, confusing Clara further. A tangled mix of hope and apprehension brewed within her. Would he mistake her for a servant, rather than the human she still struggled to see within herself? Jasper Ashwood's voice interjected, warm and welcoming, piercing through the troubled stillness surrounding Clara. "Hello, my dear friend. This is Jasper Ashwood, your narrator of Mountain Tales. Before we start, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below telling me where you're tuning in from. A big hug to you all, and I hope you enjoy the story." With that, the moment hung loosely in the air, an invitation to witness Clara's transformative journey, to see her rise from the ashes of dehumanization to the realization of her true worth. Each step towards self-discovery would challenge not only Clara but the very essence of those who sought to measure worth through arbitrary standards. Together with Caleb, her story was just beginning, a tale waiting to unfold amidst the backdrop of harsh landscapes and unfettered resilience. In the shadows of uncertainty, there remained the smallest glimmer of something intangible, hope, awaiting its time to flourish. As the winds carried whispers of what lay ahead, Clara breathed deeply, ready to embrace the unknown and discover the woman she could become. Each heartbeat thrummed with potential, echoing through the chill of that unforgiving winter as a new chapter in her life beckoned. As the door of Caleb's cabin creaked open, Clara stepped inside, her heart racing with an unfamiliar blend of fear and curiosity. The warmth enveloped her, a stark contrast to the biting cold outside. Thick beams of wood crossed the ceiling, and the faint scent of roasting venison wafted through the air, mixing with the earthy aroma of the logs that formed the sturdy walls. It was a far cry from the harsh, barren space she had known at home, a space filled with sharp words and bitter memories. Caleb stepped in behind her, closing the door and sealing the chilly world outside. "Make yourself at home," he said, his voice steady and calm as he moved to the fire crackling in the hearth. Clara hesitated, clinging to the threshold as if it were a lifeline, skepticism coursing through her veins. His welcoming demeanor felt genuine, yet the shadows of her father's disdain had a stubborn grip on her heart. "I have a few tasks to finish," Caleb continued, turning to her with a soft look. "I'll prepare some food afterward. You're likely tired from the journey." There was an invitation behind his words, an offer to share, to consider her needs. Clara swallowed hard, a knot tightening in her throat. Could it really be this simple, to be seen, to be cared for? With cautious steps, she ventured further into the cabin, her eyes scanning the space. Each piece of furniture told a story, a sturdy table scratched with the marks of time, a few mismatched chairs standing in rank, and shelves lined with jars filled to the brim with berries, herbs, and hard-won preserves. The heart of the cabin pulsed with life, the warm glow of the fire illuminating the world Caleb had carved out for himself. "Please, sit," he urged, sensing her apprehension. Clara darted her gaze to him, then to the chair near the hearth, worn leather and inviting. She approached slowly, settling herself gingerly onto the edge of the seat, as if afraid it might swallow her whole. Caleb was meticulous in his movements, deftly maneuvering around the kitchen area, pouring water from a wooden bucket, peeling potatoes with a practiced hand. The atmosphere brimmed with an awkward silence, yet it was punctured occasionally by the friendly crackle of the fire. Clara found her thoughts drifting back to childhood, memories dancing hazily in her mind. The laughter of children, now ghostly echoes that haunted her. How strange it was to think that laughter could feel like a distant dream. Would there ever be a time when she too could laugh again without feeling the gnawing sting of inadequacy? Caleb turned to her, noticing the distant look in her eyes. "What do you miss most? From before?" he asked, his voice low, intent on breaking the silence that threatened to engulf them. The question caught her off guard, and Clara felt the weight of it settle like a thick blanket across her chest. I don't know," she managed hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think I was just hoping to be seen." Caleb nodded, a flicker of understanding passing over his features. "You're not alone in that, Clara. Many feel invisible in this world, especially those who are different." There was a depth to his voice, sincerity that softened the edges of her fear. "You've arrived in a place where you can be yourself, where you won't be judged because of what others see." His words settled over her, the warmth wrapping around her body like a comforting embrace. Clara found herself watching him more intently. There was something respectable about him, a gentleness in his actions. He hadn't demanded her submission. Instead, he quietly encouraged her to exist alongside him. She felt a tiny spark flicker to life inside her, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. "Why did you buy me?" The question slipped out before she could stop it, edged with vulnerability. She clenched the arms of the chair, bracing herself for the answer. Caleb paused, a flicker of hesitation crossing his face, before he continued with careful consideration. "I didn't set out to buy anyone. My life had become too lonely, and perhaps I saw a chance for companionship in you." He turned slightly, preparing the venison on a makeshift grill over the fire. "But there's more to it than mere companionship. I can tell you've faced hardships no one should. I want to help you, Clara. It's not much, but it's all I have to offer." His words hung heavy in the air, infusing the space with hope and an undeniable bond. Clara blinked sharply. She had expected him to speak of possession or duty, a business transaction in disguise, but there was none of that in his voice. Instead, she heard respect wrapped in the tenderness of an understanding that went deeper than words. The moments between them passed incrementally, the rhythm of the cabin marking a slow beat of intimacy. As they prepared the meal together, Clara found herself drawn into the simplicity of the task. She rinsed the vegetables, her hands working with a steadiness she hadn't known she possessed. In those quiet breaths, she began to feel pieces of herself emerge from the mud of despair, an unexpected sense of purpose. As dusk fell softly around them, painting the room in gentle shadows, Clara's thoughts drifted toward the lessons she had learned, yet never truly absorbed. She had spent her life believing that being different meant being unloved. Each comment, each scornful look, had reinforced her belief. Yet here she was, in the home of a mountain man who didn't seem fazed by her uniqueness. "Once someone told me I was cursed," Clara breathed, the confession spilling from her lips unbidden as she peered into the flickering fire. "And I believed them." Caleb paused, his knife frozen mid-air, his eyes fixed on her with extraordinary intensity. "You're not cursed, Clara. You possess something many people can't even dream of having." He placed down the knife and turned fully to face her. "You're unique. In my community, your differences would be celebrated." "Your community?" Clara echoed with wonder, the curiosity igniting like wildfire. "What are they like?" Caleb's smile grew, warmth spreading through the room. "They value the gifts we each possess, talents that others may overlook," he replied, his excitement tangible. "We believe each person carries something special, a light that's meant to shine. Your albinism. It's not a curse, Clara, it's a gift. It's a chance to inspire others." In that moment, softly illuminated by the warm glow of the fire, Clara began to feel the stirrings of hope within her. Perhaps Caleb was right. Perhaps she could learn to embrace who she was, the unique intricacies that had made her feel like a pariah all her life. They shared flickers of laughter, tales of the trails he'd walked, and slowly, Clara let herself be pulled into the warmth of companionship he offered. With the evening deepening, they gathered around the table for their meal, a humble fare, but made rich by the connection that had blossomed between them. Clara savored every bite, each morsel imbued with a mix of gratitude and unexpected joy. The cabin felt different, filled with a sense of belonging she had thought long lost. Days became weeks, woven together by routines that nurtured Clara's spirit and fortified her bond with Caleb. The hands that had once trembled in fear grew steady, finding purpose in pulling food from the earth and enjoying the fruits of their labor together. Clara learned to bake bread, her laughter filling the space alongside the sweet aroma of yeast and honey, each batch rising with hope. Each living creature in the cabin, a handful of chickens and a loyal dog, became companions, witnesses to her rejuvenation. Clara even began to venture outside more often, marveling at the untouched beauty of the wilderness surrounding her, realizing that perhaps her gifts had a purpose beyond mere survival. One afternoon, she stood at the edge of the clearing, her face lifted toward the sun as she closed her eyes, allowing its warmth to soak into her skin. In that moment, she felt the weight of shame starting to dissipate, lifted by the gentle breeze that brushed against her cheeks. And there, beneath the expansive sky, Clara silently vowed to remain resilient, to rise beyond the shadows and claim her place in this world. Caleb's presence silently supported her, a steady rhythm in her life. He respected her space when needed, but also drew her closer during moments of doubt. Through whispered conversations around the fire, by the gentle touch of his hand when she faltered, and shared laughter that echoed through the cabin, he showed her the power of connection. Clara felt herself shedding the remnants of her past like old skin, unearthing renewed confidence, wrapped in newfound purpose. But just as the world felt filled with potential, the echoes of her previous life, her father's disdain, the haunting taunts of fellow villagers, began to stir like dark clouds on the horizon. It wasn't long before the storm arrived in the form of a traveling merchant, his voice a guttural rasp that cut through the peace of their carefully constructed life. He bore news of Clara's father, a man dismayed at having lost what he deemed a mere commodity, now intent on reclaiming what he believed belonged to him. Clara's heart sank upon hearing the man's words, panic rippling through her as the memories of shame and hurt washed over her. But amidst her fear, Caleb stood firm by her side, his unwavering support anchoring her as they prepared for the confrontation looming on the horizon. They would gather allies among the few kind souls who had witnessed the truth of Clara's worth, tapping into the very community Caleb had spoken of. "Together, we'll face this," he promised, his voice low and resolute, sealing their unyielding alliance against the shadows, threatening to engulf them. Together they would confront her past, and together they would emerge victorious, each supporting the other in a journey from darkness into light. In that moment, standing on the precipice of fear and courage, Clara embraced the battle ahead, heart pounding in synchronization with the drumbeat of destiny that called them closer to the truth. This journey would only deepen her understanding of herself, and perhaps, just maybe, reveal to the world the brilliance hidden within the unique tapestry of who she was becoming. Just as the weather ebbed and flowed, Clara prepared herself for the inevitable storm that awaited them, a tempest that would challenge the fabric of her newfound existence, demanding she fight with everything she had to reclaim what was rightfully hers. And with Caleb by her side, she was ready to rise. The days leading up to the confrontation felt like a string of taut piano wires, each moment vibrating with potential, each breath heavy with anticipation. Clara moved through her daily routine in the cabin, an anchor of normalcy in the storm that brewed just outside her door. The sun spilled warm light through the small windows, illuminating the wooden table where she and Caleb often shared meals. But within her, an undercurrent of anxiety swirled fiercely, threatening to pull her under. "Clara!" Caleb's voice broke through her reverie one afternoon as they tended to the chickens, the gentle clucking serving as a backdrop to their conversation. He paused, resting his hands on his hips. The way he stood spoke volumes, grounded, steady, the epitome of strength. "We need to talk about what tomorrow might bring." "I know," she replied, her voice shaky. "What if he comes with a crowd? What if they all turn against me?" The thought echoed in the corridors of her mind, memories of jeering faces and cruel laughter flashing before her eyes. Caleb stepped closer, the warmth radiating from him like a shield. "So you're stronger than you realize, Clara, and you won't face him alone. The community is willing to stand by you. They see the truth in you and they respect you." She nodded slowly, allowing his words to seep into her. "I want to believe that, but the fear of it all is still there, haunting me." Caleb brushed a stray strand of hair behind her ear, his touch lingering for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "Fear is natural, but it doesn't define you. Remember how far you've come. Tomorrow, when the time comes, remember who you are." His gentle reassurance grounded her, allowing her to breathe deeper, even amidst the storm that loomed. In those moments of quiet, she began to envision a tomorrow where she could firmly stand her ground, the weight of her past no longer hunched upon her shoulders. For the first time in what felt like ages, she felt a small flicker of hope igniting within her heart. As the hours ticked down, Clara poured her energy into preparation. She started gathering stories from the community members who had shown kindness and support since her arrival. Each tale, a thread connecting her to those who had fought their own battles. Their struggles mirrored her journey, weaving a fabric rich with resilience and shared experience. One evening, word spread through the community hall like wildfire as they gathered for a meeting. Clara stood in front of a small group, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared to speak. "I want to thank you all for the kindness you've shown me," she began, each word spilling forth with the weight of her gratitude. "You've seen my worth when I couldn't." Martha, one of the older women, smiled warmly, nodding her encouragement. "You are not alone in this, Clara. We will fight for you just as you have fought for yourself." With the crowd's support building around her, Clara shared her own story, allowing vulnerability to spill forth. "For so long I felt like a shadow, trapped beneath the weight of my father's expectations. I've come to realize that I am not defined by his actions, nor by the scorn of others." Her voice grew steadier, fueled by the murmurs of affirmation swelling around her. "We've all faced challenges. Together we can rise above." Gradually, as the days unfolded, Clara became a symbol of tenacity and hope, an emblem of independence that inspired others around her. With Caleb at her side, she honed skills that would fortify her resolve, learning how to hunt small game, navigate the wild terrain surrounding the cabin, and gather herbs for healing. Every lesson taught her about her own capabilities, turning fear into strength. "Clara, you're a natural at this," Caleb remarked one sunny afternoon as they tracked a doe across the wooded expanse. "Your connection to the land is profound. Trust it. Trust yourself." She took in the clarity of his words. "I'm starting to understand that. It feels like a dance, a rhythm I've never noticed before." Day by day, Clara experienced what it was to embrace the wild beauty around her, to feel the shifting paths beneath her feet, the scent of pine in the air, the murmur of the creek harmonizing with her heartbeat. It felt freeing, wild, intoxicating. This was her refuge, each breath she took infused with possibility. As the sun rose on the day of the confrontation, Clara felt a rising tide of nerves. Outside her cabin, the town buzzed with energy, the familiar faces of friends and allies ready to stand with her. Clara stood at the door, looking out at the gathering, uncertainty gnawing deep within her. Caleb approached, his gaze steadying her tumultuous thoughts. "You can do this, Clara. Look at all the people ready to support you. They want you to overcome this." "I'm just scared of what he'll say," she admitted softly, her heart thrumming in her chest. "What if they turn against me? What if they believe him?" "They won't," he assured her, cupping her face in his hands. "You've forged bonds with these people. They see your strength. Let them support you. It's a community for a reason." As they made their way to the town square, Clara felt a fierce sense of connection to the land and to the people surrounding her. The warmth of the sun beamed down upon them, awakening a hope that glimmered in the distance, a glint of resilience ready to take flight. In the town square, the crowd began building, drawn together by the weight of shared struggles and Clara's burgeoning presence. The merchant had already arrived, his posture stiff with authority, Jacob lurking at his side, his dark eyes simmering with indignation. "Ladies and gentlemen," the merchant began, his voice slicing through the air, "I present to you Clara Beth Morrison, a girl who would abandon her family for foolish ideals. She is not the daughter you need." The murmurings within the crowd twisted sharply. Clara could feel the heat of their scrutiny piercing through her like arrows, but what she sensed more prominently was the gathering tide of support swelling around her. Caleb stood beside her, unwavering, his presence a fortress against the onslaught of objectification. "No, she's not a commodity," Clara shouted over the rising commotion, her voice rising like a phoenix from the ashes of fear. "I stand here not as a possession, but as a person who has chosen their own worth." As Clara stepped forward, she caught sight of Jacob's face twisting in anger, a mix of desperation and fury as he tried to impose guilt upon her. "You will regret this. You are mine. You cannot just throw away family for these by strangers." His voice was filled with rage. A deafening silence filled the air, punctuated only by Clara's heartbeat echoing in her ears. She felt the air thicken around her. It was time to combat the shadows of her past. "Am I a stranger?" Martha's voice rang out from within the thrumming crowd, her tone unapologetic. "You've never acknowledged her as family, only as something to control. Clara belongs among us now. We stand together." The crowd erupted in supportive murmurs, resonating with Clara's newfound identity. "I've overcome my fears and learned to embrace myself," she proclaimed. I don't need your approval anymore, Jacob. You've taken enough from me. I refuse to allow you to take my worth." Somewhere in the throng, voices soared in agreement. A familiar face emerged amongst the murmurings. Rebecca, a friend Clara had met along her journey. "You are not alone in this fight, Clara. We will rally for you, standing together for a brighter future." As the crowd began to chant her name, Clara felt a fire ignite deep within her. The energy buzzing from those surrounding her pulsed through her body, resonating within the very fibers of her spirit. "I've shed the shame of my past, and I have built a family here," Clara cried, standing taller than she had ever imagined, emboldened in conviction. "I embrace every piece of my identity. It is time for those who have endured abuse, neglect, and oppression to reclaim their power. You will not silence us any longer." Joyous cries surged forth from the community around her, those she had grown close to, standing resolutely at her side. Jacob's fury escalated. "You'll regret this, Clara. I will ensure you pay for turning your back on your family." Caleb took a step forward. "No more threats. We have witnessed the depth of her spirit, the strength she carries, and we will not allow you to diminish it. Our community will protect her." The tension erupted around them, swirling like a tempest, but Clara felt buoyed by those who supported her. Together they had woven a protective barrier against Jacob's cruelty, emboldening her spirit. "Clara is not just a name," she shouted, her voice steadying amidst the chaos. "Her worth cannot be measured, and her legacy will not be defined by you. She is a force of nature, unpredictable and beautiful, just like this wild land we inhabit." Jacob faltered for just a moment, disarray swirling in his eyes, and for the briefest instant, he looked like a trapped creature desperately seeking escape. But the flames of defiance grew hotter, illuminating Clara's path toward freedom. Martha stepped forward once more, her voice resonant. "We honor Clara, and we recognize her right to choose her family. Jacob, it is time to face the truth. You have wronged her. The past cannot be rewritten, nor can your misuse of love dictate her future." The crowd surged forward, fueled by Clara's bravery and conviction. "You've made her your pawn long enough, Jacob, no more." The ripple of support became a wave, crashing against all that had once confined Clara to a life not of her choosing. "Leave and never return," Clara commanded with a strength she had never known she possessed. "You have no authority here. I have forged my own path." At that moment, there was clarity, a brilliant flame illuminating her way forward. She felt the weight of their support behind her, a family forged through shared stories and struggles. Jacob finally retreated, his eyes burning with anger and disbelief. The merchant stepped back too, sensing the palpable shift in the crowd. Clara stood tall, rooted in her newfound strength, basking in the embrace of those who had come to stand by her side. As the dust settled, Clara turned slowly to face her community, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, emotion spilling from her like a rushing river. "Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me when I could barely believe in myself." Martha stepped forward, wrapping Clara in a warm embrace. "We will always stand with you, Clara. Together we are strong." Others joined in, each voice echoing the chorus of acceptance and friendship, a tapestry woven from the threads of shared trials. Caleb's quiet presence solidified the warmth enveloping her, silently affirming the bond they had built, one of understanding and respect. "You are home, Clara. You will not be alone ever again." For the first time in her life, Clara understood the beauty of resilience, the tiered layers of identity that had emerged from the ashes of shame. Together they faced the future, ready to embrace the challenges that lay ahead. As the sun began to dip beneath the horizon, Clara felt the first stirrings of true freedom. She had emerged from the shadows, not merely as a survivor, but as a warrior ready to embrace the world. From this day forward, she would forge her legacy alongside those who saw her worth, unyielding in their support. With a heart filled with resolve, Clara took a breath, finally stepping into the light of her own determination. A brave new world waiting to unfurl in front of her, one story at a time. The warmth of the sun on Clara's skin felt like an embrace, a sign that brighter days were ahead. Each morning began with renewed determination, her heart swelling with purpose as she embraced her role in the community. Under the open sky, she cultivated connections that enriched her life and those around her. The flavor of freedom was intoxicating, a sweet reminder that she was no longer afraid of the shadows that had once threatened to swallow her whole. Weeks flowed into one another, marked by laughter and shared experiences within the halls of their gathering place. Clara organized events that not only fostered skill sharing, but also celebrated the community's unique gifts. The potlucks expanded in variety, each dish carrying the rich history of its cook, and Clara found great joy in the stories that accompanied them. These gatherings created a safety net of support, and within this scaffold of strength, she stood taller than ever. One sunny afternoon, Clara directed her focus toward a new idea, a healing circle, where she envisioned bringing people together to share not only their talents, but their struggles and hopes. She imagined it as a sacred space where vulnerability would be met with compassion, a realm where pain could be transformed into strength. With the help of Martha, who had a background in herbalism, they began laying the groundwork. Imagine, Clara mused, her hands sweeping through the air as if painting a vivid picture, a space filled with the scents of lavender and sage, candles flickering softly, creating an atmosphere of warmth. People could come together, share their burdens, and leave feeling lighter, strengthened by the collective spirit of the group. Martha nodded, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. It will be a place where everyone feels seen. Sharing our stories can heal wounds we didn't even know we had. Both women set to work, gathering supplies and creating a comforting environment. They crafted cushions from fabric scraps, collected herbs known for their calming properties, and curated a selection of stories that themselves became a balm for the soul. As the evening of the first healing circle approached, Clara could feel the fluttering excitement coupled with anxiety. She had faced Jacob and his disdainful threats, but this was different. The stakes felt more personal. Would the community show up? Would they be brave enough to share their innermost feelings and fears with one another? As dusk fell and the stars began to twinkle overhead, Clara lit candles, their soft glow casting playful shadows on the walls of the meeting hall. She took a moment to breathe, centering herself before the gathering started. A steady stream of friends filtered in, their faces familiar, but each carried their own stories they would weave into the circle tonight. "Welcome, everyone," Clara began, her voice quiet yet resonant. "Thank you for coming. This circle is a sacred space, one where we can share our truths, our burdens, and discover how to support one another. Let tonight be a time of connection, healing, and renewal." The room was filled with respect and warmth as people settled into their cushions, the atmosphere buzzing with anticipation. Clara felt the energy shift as people began to share their tales. One by one, their voices rose and fell like a gentle tide, each story echoing the struggles they faced and the triumphs they celebrated. Sam spoke of the struggles of raising his two younger siblings after their mother had fallen ill, detailing the pressure of their situation and the weight of his responsibilities. Clara felt a wave of solidarity wash over her as he finished, his vulnerability bringing tears to her eyes. It was a powerful reminder that everyone had their battles to fight, and the willingness to share them could lead to greater healing. As the night wore on, Clara felt inspired by the stories, and her confidence blossomed with every shared word. The room filled with laughter, as Martha recounted a time years ago when she had accidentally turned her pot of herbal tea into a concoction that nearly caused an explosion. Laughter echoed through the hall, creating a warmth that wrapped around each person, dissolving barriers. Eventually, it was Clara's turn to share. Stepping into the center of the circle, she felt exposed, yet undeniably empowered. "I wanted to create this space not just because I believe in healing, but because I know firsthand what it feels like to be alone in your struggles." The honesty in her voice pierced through the air, weaving a connection with those listening. "For so long I felt like I was defined by others' expectations, never quite good enough. But this community has taught me that my worth isn't dictated by another's perception of me. I'm learning every day that my voice matters, and that strength lies in our ability to connect with one another." As she spoke, she noticed the nodding heads, the gentle affirmations of acceptance resonating through the group. "We have the power to rewrite our stories together. When we lean on each other, we can weather any storm." The energy in the room shifted, inviting others to speak, sharing their truths with newfound courage. Clara looked around, witnessing the bonds of trust forming among them, each voice lending support to another's. It was intoxicating, this sense of solidarity that went beyond spoken words. It was woven into the very fabric of their hearts. As the healing circle concluded, people lingered, reluctant to let the moment fade. Conversations sparked, laughter rang through the hall, and the strength of the group pulsed vibrantly like a living organism. Clara gracefully moved through the crowd, basking in the blooming connections, each handshake and embrace weaving into the tapestry of their community. That night, as she prepared for bed, Clara reflected on the evening, her heart brimming with joy. This was just the beginning, she realized. They were forging a new path together, a community rallied around empathy, shared struggles, and the indomitable human spirit. But just as Clara began to let herself bask in the warmth of this new world, Jacob's shadow loomed ever closer. Word started spreading that he was gathering allies, stirring trouble among their friends, with ominous threats echoing through the whispers of the town. The tension in the air crackled and simmered like an approaching storm on the horizon. One brisk morning, Clara found herself standing on the porch looking out over the hills, contemplating. She had emerged from darkness and birthed new life in the community, yet the spectre of Jacob's anger and bitterness still cast a long shadow. She sensed that the challenge was not just about standing firm against his bitterness. This would be a fight for their cohesive bond, their shared values. That afternoon, Clara called for an emergency meeting. Word spread quickly, and as the crowd assembled, Clara could see the faces of her community, familiar, determined, and ready to stand strong against any threat. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," Clara began, her heart racing. "You all know the struggles we've faced recently, the ugly cracks Jacob has tried to drive between us, but I believe our strength lies in our unity." She looked around, drawing strength from each encouraging nod and gesture. "We must not let fear or manipulation guide us. We must stand firm together as we protect what we've built. Together we are a fortress against any storm." A sense of purpose filled the room, the air thick with resolve. Sam was the first to rise, voicing strong support. "We've come too far to let one man break our community. I'll stand with you, Clara." One by one, others echoed their vows of loyalty. "Count me in. I'll help lead our defenses. Together we are unshakable." Clara felt the adrenaline surge through her as the group rallied around, forming a pact to guard not just their homes, but the very foundation of their lives. It was empowering and incredible, reminding her that even amidst fear, they could forge a path through determination and solidarity. As the days progressed and Jacob's threats loomed larger, the community became a tighter unit, sharing resources, gathering evidence against any claims he might make, and reiterating their commitment to one another. Clara organized outreach efforts to manifest public support, ensuring Jacob understood the strength they held as a collective. They painted signs, organized rallies, and shared stories not only as a way to build awareness, but also to bolster each other's spirits. Clara emerged with a clarity of purpose. This was not merely a fight against Jacob's shadows. It was a fight for their very identities, the lives they were forging free from past constraints. During one rally, Clara stood before the crowd, her heart pulsing with determination. "Together, we will fight against the shadows of the past that seek to divide us. They do not define who we are. Today we reclaim our power, reclaim our stories. Alone we are whispers, but together we are a mighty roar." Her words ignited the crowd, each person raising their voices in unison. Clara felt a deep sense of belonging swell within her. She was not just a warrior for herself, but a champion of the entire community, and that bond made every ounce of this struggle worthwhile. Just as Clara thought the tides might shift favorably, tragedy struck. News arrived that the merchant had indeed made formal claims against Clara on the basis of her supposed abandonment of her familial ties. The shadow of his influence had seeped into the hearts of those who had once shown her kindness. Clara could feel the weight of despair cloaking the community like a suffocating fog. With these devastating developments, Clara convened an emergency meeting, her heart heavy as she stood before her friends. Here was potential division on the horizon. The fire of unity threatened to flicker under the weight of Jacob's greed and denial. "Friends," Clara began, her voice wavering momentarily with raw emotion, "these claims seek to tear us apart, but this is a testament of our strength. We've faced adversity before. We can confront this together, as we have done so many times." The nods from familiar faces echoed her sentiments, and she could see the fire of determination alight in their eyes once more. They stood resolute, ready to fight, not just for Clara, but for the bonds they shared and the future they hoped to create. With newfound focus, Clara led the charge, gathering evidence for their collective story, pushing them all together toward the inevitable confrontation with Jacob that awaited. This was not the end. It was merely the next chapter, and they would write it together. As Clara prepared for the days ahead, re-energized by the community's support, she stood tall, ready to embrace whatever lay in wait. One thing remained certain. The darkness could not extinguish the light she had fought so hard to build. She would emerge from this conflict larger than life, hand in hand with a community that had chosen to rise together. In the quiet moments, as Clara contemplated the battles that lay ahead, she felt the power of their unity resonate within her. What had begun as a timid heart shaped like a fragile bubble was now a fierce, resounding echo of purpose and belonging, a chorus that celebrated resilience and claimed their empowerment. Together, they would weather any storm, transform challenges into chances, and stand tall against shadows of the past, forging a brighter future, one filled with hope, love, and unwavering support amongst a community that would forever be her family. As the sun rose on the day of the trial, Clara could feel the weight of anticipation hanging thick in the air. She had spent the previous weeks delving deep into her community, stoking the fires of unity among her friends, neighbors, and newfound family. Today was the culmination of all those efforts, and every heartbeat echoed the promise of resilience against Jacob's looming threat. Stepping out onto the porch of her cabin, Clara inhaled the fresh, crisp air of the morning, filled with the scent of pine and wildflowers. A reassuring breeze danced past her, a gentle reminder of the strength that bloomed within her, a collective spirit that had grown from shared struggles to become a powerful force. Inside the town hall, the murmurs of her community created a swirling energy, a buzz of hope and camaraderie that filled the room as they gathered to show their support. Clara arrived early to prepare herself, her heart beating rapidly yet steadily, a rhythm of clarity cutting through the nerves. She took a moment to breathe, centering herself amidst the rising expectations. Caleb found her before the proceedings began, a steadying presence. "You're not alone in this, Clara," he said, his voice low and sincere, reminding her of the people behind her, ready to stand united. "No matter what happens in that courtroom, we are by your side." She nodded, grateful for his encouragement. "I know. I'll do my best to fight not just for me, but for all of us. Jacob thinks he can tear us apart, but he underestimates our strength." As the courtroom filled, Clara felt a wave of warmth ripple through her. The people she had come to cherish were all there, prepared to defend not only her, but the spirit of their community. Neighbors took their seats, exchanging encouraging nods, whispering soothing words, building a fortress of positivity around her. When the judge entered, the room fell silent. Clara knew this was more than a legal battle. It was a fight for their whole way of life, the love they had forged together. Watching Jacob slouch against the opposite wall, she steeled herself. The cloud of his negativity no longer held the power to sway her. She had found her footing. The judge addressed the court, his voice firm. "Today, we will hear the case of Jacob Cartwright against Clara Ashwood. Mr. Cartwright, please present your claims." Jacob's attorney stepped to the front, a man with an authoritative demeanor. He began listing allegations against Clara, depicting her as neglectful and self-serving. Each accusation felt like a jab, trying to dot points of shame across the tapestry of who Clara had become. Yet as she listened, she could feel the resolve in her growing stronger. When it was Clara's turn, she approached the stand with a mixture of trepidation and fierce determination. "Your Honor," she began, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart, "I stand here to speak not just for myself, but for every person who has felt voiceless or marginalized." She glanced back at her community, their eyes sparkling with belief. "I have the privilege of belonging to a community that has taught me the true meaning of love and support. Together, we have faced adversity. We have built a family." Clara took a breath, exciting the crowd with her words. "What my opponent fails to acknowledge is that, while I may not have followed the traditional path dictated by society, I have found my way through my community's embrace. I am not just defined by my past. I have grown and transformed." The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. Clara's words resonated, and she could see the judge intently listening, his attention focused on the truth she was sharing. "Jacob Cartwright wants to strip away everything I've accomplished and all the bonds I've created. I refuse to let that happen." The attorney tried to interrupt, but Clara pressed on. "These accusations are rooted in judgment, not truth. My community stands with me because we belong to one another. Together, we rise." Sounds of agreement erupted from the crowd, a surge of support that filled the room. Clara felt empowered, buoyed by the strength of those around her. She knew their stories, their struggles, and the shared commitment to each other that had forged something beautiful and strong, a tapestry of hope amidst the chaos. As she finished speaking and returned to the group, a rush of relief washed over her. They stood united, a protective circle around Clara still buzzing with energy. One by one they prepared to testify on her behalf, lending their voices to the narrative she had painted, a narrative of love over hate. Their testimonies unfolded like petals opening to the sun. Each friend spoke about Clara's contributions, the growth they had all shared, recounting moments that illuminated her character and the role she played in nurturing hope across their small community. "Clara helped me when no one else would," one neighbor said, his voice quavering slightly with emotion. "She listened to me and made sure I felt valued. In my darkest moments, she reminded me that I belonged somewhere." Her friends shared stories of how Clara had been a guiding light for them, her unwavering support, lifting them from despair to empowerment. Each verbal tapestry woven further illuminated the truth of their bond, combating Jacob's claims, telling a story that transcended mere words. As the trial continued, Jacob's defense faltered in the face of overwhelming support for Clara. His legal demands felt hollow, and the community's heartfelt declarations bridged the gap between self-doubt and belief. The more Clara's friends spoke, the stronger she felt, their trust emboldening her resolve. The judge allowed Jacob's attorney a final attempt to sway sentiment, but with each word, it became apparent that Clara and her community had woven a blanket of strength too thick to cut through. She watched as doubts rattled Jacob's confidence. His expression darkened, and the confidence he had once exuded began to wane. Finally, the judge turned to address the court after hearing the compelling stories. His gaze met Clara's, and she felt the weight of the moment. "I have witnessed testimony today that reveals a community woven together through compassion and shared experience." Jacob Cartwright's assertions fall short against the compelling love and support Clara Ashwood has fostered in this town. A rush of applause erupted, filling the courtroom with passion. Clara felt a wave of relief wash over her as the crowd embraced the reality that they were not just individual stories, they were a collective identity, undeterred by fear and saturated with hope. The judge raised his hand for silence. "The court finds in favor of Clara Ashwood. Let this serve as a testament to what a community can become when love and support take precedence over prejudice and fear." The declaration sent ripples of joy through the crowd. Tears flowed freely as friends embraced one another, united in victory. Clara's breath escaped her in a rush, the combination of relief and elation enveloping her. She turned to Caleb, their eyes locking as they shared a smile of triumph. "I knew you could do it," he said, pride shining through his words. "We did it," Clara replied, looking around at her community, feeling their collective heartbeat resonating together. No longer was she defined by the judgments of others. She was sturdy and unyielding, forged in the fire of unity. As the crowd slowly exited the courtroom, Clara marveled at the beautiful tapestry of lives intertwined around her, tales of struggle interwoven to create something powerful and inspiring. Together they had faced the storm and emerged unscathed, and now they could move forward into the radiant light of their shared future, ready to write the next chapter of their lives, one of love, acceptance, and unwavering courage. As Clara and her friends stepped out of the courthouse, the sunlight glinted off the neighboring buildings, the warmth embracing them like a long-lost friend. The air buzzed with a palpable mix of relief and joy. Clara felt the thrill of victory coursing through her veins, igniting a fire of hope and possibility. "We did it," Nina exclaimed, her voice ringing clear above the chatter of the crowd. "I can't believe how brave you were up there, Clara." Clara smiled, her heart swelling with pride. It had been an emotional journey, one that had tested the very fabric of her identity and her community. "I couldn't have done it without all of you," she replied, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. "This victory belongs to every single one of us." Caleb stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder, his warmth radiating comfort. "Today was just the beginning. There's so much more we can create together now, Clara. Let's make this place a beacon of hope for others." The idea turned in her mind like a vibrant thread, weaving its path through the tapestry of their lives. Clara could already envision possibilities spinning out from their triumph, the projects they could undertake, the lives they could touch, and the unity they could cultivate with renewed vigor. As the crowd dissipated, Clara felt another heartwarming presence behind her. It was Mrs. Henderson, an elder in the community who had become a mentor to Clara. "My dear," she said softly, taking Clara's hands in her own weathered ones, "you've shown us all that love can conquer hate. You are a light. Never forget that." Tears pricked Clara's vision again, but this time they were joyous. "Thank you for believing in me, Mrs. Henderson. Your support has meant everything. As days turned into weeks, the community came together in celebration of their victory, a harvest festival filled with laughter, music, and an abundance of food. Clara stood on the front porch of the town hall, gazing at the generous spread laid out before everyone. The aroma of baked goods and freshly cooked meals mixed in the air, filling her with nostalgia and a sense of home. Beyond just a celebration, this was a reaffirmation of their unity. Clara was thrilled to see children playing freely, their laughter weaving through the air like sweet melodies, while adults exchanged stories in animated conversations. This vibrant energy reaffirmed that everything they had fought for was thriving. Caleb approached with a plate heaped with steaming food. "I thought we might help ourselves before we get caught up with the festivities. What do you say?" Clara smiled, thankful for his thoughtfulness. They moved to a quieter corner of the porch and enjoyed their meal amidst the lively chaos of celebration. "It's amazing to see everyone together like this," Clara said, looking around as neighbors embraced and children danced. "This is what we fought for." "Yes, it is," Caleb replied, his voice serious yet warm. "But it's also a reminder of what we can continue to build. We've created something beautiful, and we must nurture it." Thinking about what lay ahead, Clara felt an electrifying wave of excitement wash over her. "I want to initiate community-building projects, workshops, gatherings, places for people to feel they belong," she began, her vision taking form. "We can build on our foundation, support one another, and invite others to join us." Caleb nodded, his enthusiasm gaining momentum. "It's time to show the world how strong we are when we stand together. Together, we can empower others who have felt lost or alone." As Clara envisioned the future, the energy around them felt almost electric. They could transform not just their town, but reach far beyond its borders, sharing their story and warmth with those who needed it most. As evening fell and the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the festival, Clara took a moment to absorb it all, the laughter, the joy, the connecting of hearts and minds. She sensed their victory radiating throughout the gathered crowd, a shared pulse of resolve echoing as they crafted a new destiny together. "Clara!" a voice called out from the festivities, drawing her attention. It was Mrs. Henderson, waving her over. "We need you to help with the next dance." With a knowing smile, Clara took Caleb's hand, and they joined the circle where neighbors danced, their bodies moving in rhythm with one another as the music played, a joyous celebration of community, acceptance, and newfound hope. Clara twirled, feeling the freedom she had long fought for enveloping her. The air around her felt alive, and she embraced the moment fully. She would continue to fight for love, equality, and family. No longer burdened by fear, Clara stepped boldly into her future, ready to shape it alongside her community. As the stars lit up the sky, Clara realized this was just the beginning of their journey. They had reclaimed their narrative, forged their path forward, and proved that one voice united with others could spark a revolution of hope. Together, they would write the next chapter. Their story of triumph, resilience, and above all, love would continue to unfold. If this tale moved you, remember that it was meant to inspire. The transformation of Clara from a timid heart into a symbol of resilience reminds us. This was not just her journey. It was a testament to the power within us all. Every engagement matters. Every voice rings true. Share it, spread the message, and let it echo throughout the mountains, reminding everyone that love can indeed conquer all.